USC, UCLA on the move. So we didn't catch you midweek, or we didn't catch some of these since our last show, and a lot's happened. Lions. I mean, this is a big deal, right? I mean, USC, UCLA on the move to the Big Ten. Big Ten, obviously. You know what's, this kind of came out of nowhere. A lot of the Pac-12 was caught off guard with some of this, but I mean, there's a lot of things that go into this, right? Big Ten obviously gets a couple more quality teams. Where does this leave the Pac-12? Where does this, like, travel-wise? I mean, all of a sudden you have California teams in the Midwest, like 6-hour flights back and forth. So, there's just all sorts of things happening. Mackie says big Pac-12 just became obsolete. I mean, well, now there's going to be shifting, right? Because, I mean, teams that are already in the Pac-12 see two of the top teams that, are typically the some of the showcase highlight teams that people tune in to see jumping ship. So all of a sudden, maybe the Big 12 or the Big 12 with, the Longhorns and everything. I mean, all sorts of stuff happening here, man. Oregon next. What do you got?
This is kind of crazy right here, though, because I talked about this a little bit early in the week because, I do my own podcast as well called Sports Talk with Lion, by the way. If you guys wanted to check it out. I do it over on my channel. Try to get it in once a week. But we talked about this. And the main thing with this and what it's a good and a bad, right? So you get good as far as UCLA and USC moving to the Big Ten. That gives them the comp, right? So now you're going into the big house, you're going into the shoe and all of that. Now, what that does is you get recruits now that see that, and they know that being on that stage in the big in the shoe in Ohio State and in the big house in Michigan, you're definitely gonna get some looks. Like they're those teams that are always mainstream. They're getting looked at 24/7. So they're gonna be kids just alone on that side in LA that's gonna say, I can go to this school and have a chance to go up against some of the top teams on the East Coast and the Midwest, all of that stuff. Like they're gonna love all of that. So that's the plus size for this for USC and UCLA moving right now. The bad side of it, you leave Oregon on the island by themselves with Pac-12. There's nobody else there. It's essentially dead. You can't take a team like Boise State, move them in there. They don't have a big enough school for that type of environment. Yeah, you look at K-State, you look at Kansas, you look at all those schools. Arizona, it's not really gonna do anything for them. Like, so essentially what I feel like it's definitely a type of money grab move in a sense too, because again, you move into the Big Ten, right? You got kids that are getting NILs, right? You see that. You see these companies that's wanting to work with them. Now, once you start pulling in top recruits, you started pulling in big time recruits, those NIL deals are going to become more. So now that's going to help the schools. The schools are going to say, well, if they're working with American Airlines with something that they have, why come we can't move in and say, hey, listen, American Airlines, this is a student, let's work out a deal where we can charter flights for these particular schools. So now they're not on these planes flying commercial. They're flying first class in their own flights and their own planes going. So it's pluses and minuses all around the board. But what I see as far as like the football side of it, it's going to be a good thing for USC and UCLA, 100%.
Now, I mean, I'll get to whether or not you think they can compete in those conferences in the Big Ten, right? I mean, we'll touch on that in a second. But yeah, you mentioned it too. Oregon and Washington are two teams that I feel like have the clear incentive to try to find their way out, because those two programs have historically been, better programs out of the Pac-12. You have Utah and Colorado, who are kind of middle of the road. My boys here, the Buffs down in Boulder here. So, what do? Are they, obviously they're kind of, trying to figure out a way to keep relevancy for their programs as well. Schools like San Diego State, Boise State, they're kind of, I don't know. I mean, they're not enough to keep the Pac-12 afloat. I mean, they're those programs are just on the bottom end of everything. But I mean, it's going to be interesting. I mean, and we're talking about like potential. We've seen this kind of on the horizon, right? When some of the other teams from the Big 12 shifted over down to the SEC, right? And then all of a sudden you're like, all these other. We've had the rumors around for the longest time about Pac-12, about Mountain West, all these conferences trying to shift around to try to compete and stay in line with, some of the bigger conferences that are just hoarding big time programs. So it's going to be fascinating to see how we're headed towards super conferences. Realistically, that's just how it feels. But Mackie in the chat. LA is going to prosper without this NIL stuff. Oregon always has Nike, so they will thrive as well. Arizona's decent. They'll probably ship soon as well, says Mackie. Big 12 scraped up Houston and Tulane to replace Texas and Oklahoma. Yep. So it's like there's just a bunch of shifting, but going back to these two teams heading over to the Big 10, can they compete?
If I had to choose, to be honest, and this is just me because I'm a huge Notre Dame fan. I'm all ND, so I kind of hate USC, but USC I can see will probably be the one that could compete better than UCLA. Just knowing UCLA's past and what they brought the past couple years, they've gotten better, but let's look at how many bowls and the top bowls that they've been to. It's not been many. USC is always the name. It was either USC and Oregon coming out of that Pac-12, and you would know the names. So them moving, like I said, doing this move, USC is probably going to be the first one to thrive. And then UCLA will come along. Because like I said, once these recruits start to see what stage they can play on, it's going to make the programs better. It's definitely going to make them better.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see how this ends up playing out. I mean, it gives my Colorado Buffaloes a little bit of a chance to compete with because they haven't had a really good shot. But I mean, supposedly they've had some nice little recruiting. They've had a couple recruits come their way. Our Mountain West Rammies out here, Colorado State Rammies, have had a couple people have mentioned that we've had a really nice run with getting some recruits there. But I mean, realistically, like the Big Ten, the SEC, we're going to have a lot of good competition across the board. ACC still, obviously has relevancy. Amanda Lorian, welcome in. Amanda Lorian is our resident West Coaster because she loves talking her West Coast sports, especially college. I'm surprised University of California Chancellor and Governor let UCLA go because they would have had taken Cal also, since it is a part of the University of California system. I mean, it's the dominoes haven't all fallen with this either. So, the minute this was announced, I think there was some shock too. The shock from the Pac-12. I think that they were kind of just caught off guard with all of this. It's not something that I feel like they saw coming, realistically.
But, I think what makes this stand out even more too, Chris, is how fast they were able to transition over. Because you got what was it, like Texas? They're not scheduled to be in their new conference until the year after. So them going for 2024, like that seems like they moved a little faster and they got this pushed along a little quicker than people thought. So I think this is what makes that stand out a lot more. Yeah,
100%. And another reason this move would be less disruptive than like moves to the ACC or other conferences like USC and UCLA have a grant of rights tied to the current Pac-12 television contract, which expires after 2023 too. Like the football season, it's kind of in line with that. That's why the expectation that both schools can go to the league for the 2024-25 season is not like a huge financial penalty either. So they're kind of manipulating this to make it so that they don't have a huge hit when it comes to the financial aspect of it. But the financial pressures are being felt by the Pac-12. That's for sure. Similar to be like, it's going to be interesting to see how they come out of this. Amanda Laurie in the chat, the Pac-12 never appreciated the second largest media market in Los Angeles. Fair. That's fair.
Wow. Yeah, definitely fair.
I mean, again, going back, we recently saw Texas and Oklahoma go to the SEC. And, with those moves, it starts getting all of these others. I mean, then you got like wild cards. I mean, Notre Dame is kind of on their own, right? They're kind of, I mean, you got some,
but I want to say it's Notre Dame, and this is me coming in from a fan standpoint, right? Notre Dame doesn't want to lose that NBC deal. They don't want to lose that. That's kind of the reason why they're taking a stance of we're just going to stand alone and we'll kind of like play into the ACC teams, but not really accept it, so to speak. When which is crazy because if you look at it, the basketball team, they wear the ACC logo. Like they're already like fully in. It's just the football team is not willing to make that move because they're sitting here saying, like, wait, hold up. We lose this NBC deal. Like this is nationally broadcast. Like we're on mainstream TV with this. Like I don't want to make fully committed to this and lose that. You got to think about that money is funding that university somehow. And if they don't want to lose that, but they're gonna, with everything and how everything is shifting, it's gonna definitely be something they're gonna have to look into. And if it was me, I think they need to just go ahead and commit to the ACC, to be honest.
And that's the big question. Big pick. How we doing?
Big
Welcome
pick.
In. First time chatter.
Guy.
Hey,
guy.
Thank you for first time into the Action Lab. Welcome in. Also, Notre Dame sucks. Hey.
You got to try to troll me right quick, but that's all right.
Welcome in. I mean, you could obviously tell me, but hey, who's your team and where are you from? Big pick. Like to get to know you a little bit. Just from you. I want to get to know you a little bit. Obviously, a lot of you folks are coming over from Lionsden chat. So, hey, introduce yourself and let's have some fun talking it up. We'll have a great time tonight. So thank you guys for all showing up and being a part of the stream. It means a lot. We're going to be doing a lot of this collaboration stuff. So, this is only the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
How y'all feeling tonight? We're feeling good, man. We're 4th of July tomorrow. We got a holiday. I got a 3-day weekend. We have some barbecuing. We got some family. We got some fireworks. We got all sorts of cool things going on. How about you, Big Pick? What do you got going on? What's your plans? And again, where are you from? Who's your team? Let's chat a little bit.
Yeah, he's a Louisiana guy, so I'm gonna think he's. I think he's LSU. I think he's an LSU guy.
Okay, all right, nice. All right, well, welcome in, and it's gonna be a fun one this year. College football is gonna be great. Louisiana, so I'm with LSU. All right, okay.
I knew it.
There we go. Man, that SEC, it's always fun to watch those SEC matchups, man. They're just like, they're so good. But yeah, man, so again, back to this, we have it's going to be interesting to see how all of the chips fall when it comes to where the Pac-12 is going to be going, where, even smaller conferences trying to work into the Pac-12, what kind of teams you see, like maybe trying to work their way into bigger conferences. But then there's just so much shuffling, man. It's just like an endless shuffling, like musical chairs, realistically.
But this is good for college football in a sense, though. We really got to think of it like this. How long have we been watching the conferences as they are kind of go through what they've been going through? And it seems like the shift that was previously made went right into the SEC, because I don't know. I mean, and a lot of people gonna be like, yo, you probably just hating, but I get tired of seeing Alabama and all these SEC teams in the last final draws of the games. Like, can we shift some stuff around and make these conferences stand out a little bit more and say, hey, listen, Big Ten making this move. I'm like Mackey said, Big Ten, SEC. I'm good with that. I'm good with that. I would love to see the Big Ten start being a powerhouse team.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I mean, typically you see, some of the recognizable names, Michigan and Ohio State. Obviously, Ohio State's going to be obviously been more relevant recently of, making a big wave to try to get in that Final Four, that playoff. But yeah, I mean, this really gives a challenge to a lot of those other teams that, hey, makes it more interesting. That's for sure. Right. Chairman of the board, welcome in. Scott is making too much sense tonight. Yes, sir. Hey, Scott, he knows what he's talking about once in a while, right?
Scott, if you're listening in, man, I'm sorry. If they kick you off the show, I'm sorry, man.
Hey, yeah. He's probably tuning in at some point. How about the team like Baylor joining the Pac-12? I don't know. I don't know if that's going to be necessarily. I mean, the big.
I don't think that does it for Baylor.
I don't think it does it. Well, because
that's not going to help the Pac-12 just all together. It's not going to help them. Like, when was the last time we really seen Baylor be relevant? Right? Was it RG3 quarterback? I mean, so
it's been a minute. And here's the thing: like the Pac-12, the stock is down on the Pac-12. You're going to a conference that doesn't necessarily have. It's not trending in the upwards direction right now by any means. Right. So, from that standpoint, I don't know how you work that around, and it's kind of a tough fit. I see where you're coming from, though, Amandalorian. I do. That would be an interesting one. Baylor, I'd rather Baylor ask.
I like that pick. I like it.
So a lot more to come with this, and this doesn't even account. Like, by the way, this doesn't even account for like how the basketball and all the other athletic NCAA, sports are gonna they all have to figure this out too. So it comes to, I mean, March Madness and everything else. I mean, all of a sudden you're looking at different types of matchups that you're looking at for UCLA and USC. That changes a little bit too, because when I'm thinking about basketball, and I mean, obviously the Pac-12 has been pretty competitive recently, but it's kind of top heavy, right? You have unless you're Bill Walton and you think half the Pac-12 teams get into the tournament.
But the competition becomes more. The competition becomes more in a sense when we talk about basketball in this move, though, because you got to think about it like this way. Purdue has been thriving. Well, they last year they really surprised me in how they put together that team. And now you got a team like UCLA, who's known to make it deep in the tournament, being in that particular conference. That's gonna push some buttons. That's gonna push some buttons when it comes to Big Ten conference, Big Ten tournament time, and who gets into the ACC tournament, and how many teams going into the tournament out of the Big Ten. So I mean, again, competition wise, it's gonna push it on the basketball side of things. But like I said, with football, it's gonna be a struggle for a little bit.
Yeah, Big 12. Pac-12 and Big 12 are going to become Conference USA and MAC soon enough, says Mackie. Let's see what happens to the Rose Bowl. And Mackie says they'll be fine. I think the Rose Bowl will be fine. It'll just be watered down. It won't. I don't think it'll have the same weight that it typically does normally with some of the bigger teams that you look to see in that Rose Bowl. It's going to be weird too, because you're used to seeing teams like USC out there and UCLA and some. I mean, UCLA recently has had some, really solid teams that, really solid talent, recruiting, everything else. So, missing out on some of those teams in the Rose will definitely affect it. But hey, again, like I said, maybe my Buffs can have a chance to get in there once in a while. Give us a chance a little bit. Big pick. I'm just teasing. Baylor is serious in basketball, men's and women's. Oh, Baylor's they're always stacked.
Yeah,
they always have to beat up on my Zags. It's really unfortunate. By the way, my wife went to Gonzaga, so otherwise I wouldn't be a Gonzaga fan. So now I just have to suffer,
Hey, You could wear that jersey last year though.
Oh, I have my Zags jersey, and it's just painful. It's painful every year, man, because they always have the highest expectations, and they always just choke it away. Mandalorian, do you think that there are going to be more mega conference forming in the future? 100%. Like it's only gonna get worse. Eventually, it's gonna be maybe like what? You got the SEC, you got the ACC, you got the Big Ten, and then you maybe have one. Maybe there's just one big conference out west. I don't know how that looks, or how that. There's gonna be bigger. Like it's on its way. If it's my prediction, it's on its way.
Right.
It's going to be either 2 or 3 mega conferences, in my opinion. Says Mackie. Zags choke. Don't remind me, man. I'm over it. I'm over. Hey, March Madness is done. We're done talking about college basketball. But
now let me ask you this though, Chris. Since we're on this thing of mega conferences, now. Do you think since we're moving into that era of having mega conferences, this almost warrants for a college football playoff style now?
Yeah, no, I think it makes sense to think about the trajectory of how you look at the playoff system with these mega conferences too. Like it's gonna like there's. I want to brainstorm all the different options. Like I have so many thoughts in my head of like where this could possibly go. And I mean, we've already talked about college, the expansion of like the current, it's bound to happen at some point with the Final Four playoff teams, but it's going to, it's going to expand. It will. And when it does, I think it's going to be closer to when those super conferences are starting to form a little bit more. Because again, this is a domino that's going to change the trajectory of how the Pac-12 and how some of these smaller conferences look at how the alignment is currently to compete with the ACC, the Big Ten, and the SEC. Like that's just, you have to, in order to be relevant, in order to have that stake and have the weight of your schedule and who you play. If you want to get into that playoff system, you have to be playing people, and if you're not playing people, it's not going to work.
Oh yeah, right.
Amanda Laura. All right, she's got some chat going on there. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens here. By the way, guys, if you guys are here, hit that follow button if you have not already, and if you haven't gone over to Lionsden, his channel, to give him a follow, do it, because he is absolutely incredible. He is our guest tonight. The link is in the chat. Go click on the link, go to his channel, hit him a follow, so that you can, whenever he's on, he's bringing it just as much as we do on the ActionLab. So make sure you guys jump in on that. But yeah, it's gonna be fascinating, man. I can't wait.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, this makes me even more and more excited for college football to get started, because now even like this year alone, I know the move is not until 2024, but I want to see how USC and UCLA reacts to this whole move. Like, do they finish out this last year top in the Pac-12? Like, do they go full speed ahead to really get the recruits' eyes and say, listen, come now, we're getting ready to make this move, make us stronger. We can get over here and we can take down the likelihoods of Michigan, Ohio State, and these teams like this. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. I'm definitely going to be keeping my eyes on them. We'll
have to have you back on for some college football talk. We're going to be doing a big college football breakdown going into the season. And I actually want to have a big panel for that. I want to have a lot of people jumping in, and we can have a good time previewing some college football. We're getting closer, guys. I think, what are we, 60-some days away from NFL season, and even a little closer to college football season. So we're getting there, and we're going to have a lot to bring you come this fall. So make sure you guys are tuning in. Make sure you hit that follow button here in the Action Lab and over at Lionsden, because you're going to want to make sure you catch all the content leading up to all of the NFL and college football seasons.
Oh, yeah.
That UCLA Westward booster, his money is going to be start pouring the football program, says Amanda. Yeah, 100%. It's going to, and see, here's the other thing too. You mentioned it earlier, the NIL deals. Like we were talking a lot about the Manning kid going over to Texas, committing to Texas, Arch Manning, the nephew of Eli and Peyton, and what kind of NIL deal he got to go there. That's behind the scenes. Obviously, they love the coaching staff and everything along those lines going down to Texas. But I mean, he had offers from some of the biggest schools. And if you want to win a college football title, a national championship, you're going to those SEC teams. I feel like there's a combination of like, one, the coaching staff. Sark is also a really good relationship with the Mannings, but also there's got to be an NIL deal behind the scenes that he is raking in some money. Arch Manning is. Ooh.
Yeah, 100%. It's something like that, because again, you got to think about this. Like, again, these kids, the deals and things that they're getting, the companies that they're getting. Like, I think, what was it, like a month or two ago, the point guard for UConn girls, she just etched the deal with not Skechers, Crocs. How many people in the world wear Crocs? That's big. That's huge. I mean, I know it's not Nike, but she got a Crocs deal. Like, it's some money. It's some stuff behind there. You know what I mean?
That's pretty damn good.
Yeah, like, I mean, it's this thing. It, like we said, we're gonna see these NIL start turning, and when they start to turn, you're gonna see these universities profiting from it, and you're just gonna be like, wow, the university got that. They got that, because again, bringing in recruits, you get those recruits, you still got to fund other programs. Now, if that recruit's coming in for football, you still got baseball, tennis, and all those other different avenues on the college campus that they got to try to work out to get the money to get those kids to come. So why not? Let's add some deals so we can get that money.
Chairman of the board makes a great point in the chat. College football as an amateur sport is dead. Yeah, well, at the same time, it's hard for me to say that athletes don't deserve this too. Like, I mean, again, colleges have preyed on athletes in college. I mean, how much money does college basketball, college football make off of video games and jerseys and your name and likeness? I mean, that's the whole thing. Name, image, and likeness, NIL. That's the whole point of, like, these kids come in and, I think maybe this needs to be a bigger topic. Maybe this is like, I mean, it is. I studied this in college too, when I was studying sports and legal stuff with everything, and how corrupt college athletics is when it comes to taking advantage of what an athlete brings a program, right? You have a Vince Young, or you have a, Reggie Bush at your program, and people are coming to, like, you're selling jerseys. I mean, you're making money off this kid and they're not seeing a single dime of it. I mean, they're let the kid make some money.
Right.
It's going to take away from some of the corruption, but I mean, there's always going to be corruption. College sports is like, there's corruption ingrained in college athletics. It's just, at least you're going about it in a more public feeling kind of way for the most part, I would think. But
and I mean, I've always been okay with it, just because, I mean, again, I'm like you, kid, they deserve this stuff. Like, they're there, all of us has been to college. We know what it feels like to be a broke college kid. Like, come on, man. Like, these guys, and most of them, they can't even hold a job because they have practices and they gotta, do things like that.
Studies.
Yeah, and that's kind of crazy, but it's cool to give it to them, and I'm okay with it, long as it doesn't bother the game. Now, when it starts to bother the game, when I got players out there that'll run out there on that field and they act like they can't hit nobody or touch nobody, I'm like, take his money away.